A sudden mist from the sea now shrouds the great house of Collinwood as it exists in the world of parallel time. And within the darkness, a diabolical plot against Quentin and Maggie Collins begins to unfold as Angelique manipulates both people and events, so Quentin Collins will be charged with murder.
You just had too much to drink, that's all. You probably frightened her. I never said she couldn't be frightened. She was probably reacting to Roger. After all, Roger would dearly love to go to Quentin and tell him what he saw. Just calm down.
Quentin Collins. Why does everyone live in fear of him?
Oh, why not? He has the money and the power.
Well, not for very long.
Why? What are you going to do?
I found the journal, so I'm going to call the police.
No, Bruno, you can't.
Don't you try to stop me.
I tell you, it will do no good now.
Wait and see.
Bruno, I won't let you. No! No, Bruno!
Hey. Get me the police. Hello? I want to report a murder.
Do you really think that was wise?
Maybe I'm not interested in being wise.
Told you. There's no proof in that journal against Quentin. It's simply the opinion of a dead man.
Do you want to find your sister's murderer or don't you?
Well, of course I do. But I wonder whether or not you do.
Why would I call the police if I didn't?
All the police will do is ask Quentin a lot of embarrassing questions.
Well, it's going to be a little more than just embarrassing.
Oh, why?
Because the police will investigate. Really investigate, like you said you would and never did.
And you're convinced that this investigation will prove that Quentin is the murderer?
I'm depending on it.
You see? You don't really want to find out who Angelique's murderer is. You simply want to destroy Quentin. It's revenge you want, not justice.
Precisely.
I can't understand it. Why would anyone ever want to destroy Quentin?
My answer wouldn't be fit for a lady's ears.
And if you're such a gentleman as all that, why don't you offer me a drink?
Delighted. Does that mean that you don't completely disapprove of what I've done?
I neither approve nor disapprove. I simply think you're wasting your time.
Is that what you really think?
Would I say so if it weren't?
I don't know. I get a very strange feeling from you this evening. You seem very aloof, and yet at the same time you seem very much involved, as if you knew exactly what you were going to do every second of the time.
I try to remain as unemotional as possible about it.
Maybe I'm confusing you with Angelique again. You know, she was able to do that. Be seemingly very cool and distant, and yet at the same time she'd be manipulating all the rest of us like we were puppets.
That, don't forget, was Angelique. I am much different, remember?
So you say. So you say, but then there are times when...
I hope you're not going to say the obvious.
No.
You know the reason I could never hope to compete with Angelique. She was always far more fascinating, more intelligent.
You know, I think you admired her almost as much as the rest of us did.
Perhaps even more. Yes. Much, much more.
The Wanderer returns.
I don't need any of your comments, Roger.
You know, it's a pity that you chose one of the more interesting nights in this dreary house to exercise your habit of dashing out into the night. You might have been amused.
What about?
And then again, you might not have been amused.
I said, what about?
Your lodger from the nearby cottage paid a neighborly call this evening.
Bruno? What did he want?
To make love to your wife, unless I'm mistaken.
What are you saying?
Oh, of course he was roundly rebuked by the good Mrs. Maggie Collins.
Are you making this up?
Oh, you credit me with imagination far beyond my modest scope.
Where's Maggie now?
I don't know, probably upstairs devising some new method of maddening you so that you can dash out of the house again.
Did it ever occur to you that you are not very funny?
No, as a matter of fact, it hadn't. Oh, by the way, Bruno made his inevitable threat that the stones of our beloved Collinwood will soon be crashing down around our heads. So perhaps the activities of the evening have only just begun. Mr. Hess?
Inspector Hamilton.
I believe you wish to report a murder.
In a moment. It would be a sacrilege to interrupt a beautiful piece of music like this. I wrote it myself, of course. It's called Ode to Angelique. Do you like it? Perhaps you know the lady that inspired it, Angelique Collins. The late Angelique Collins.
I should warn you that I don't enjoy playing games.
Nor do I. That last question was very serious. Did you know the late Angelique Stokes Collins?
Slightly. Everyone in Collinsport did. Why?
It's her murder that I want to report.
Mrs. Collins died of a stroke.
Oh, according to whom?
If I remember, it was Dr. Longworth who signed the death certificate.
Ah, yes, Dr. Longworth. Interesting fellow, wasn't he? Apparently, he was a little more complex than the rest of us suspected.
Would you mind getting to the point?
Of course, Inspector. This is a photostat of a page from a journal kept by the late lamented Dr. Longworth. I believe it comes directly to the point. Do you find it incredible?
Very.
I don't mean the journal, Inspector. I mean my music.
Quentin. Roger told me you were back.
Yes. What about this nonsense with Bruno this evening?
It was nothing but a drunken, stupid incident.
According
Quentin!
to Roger,
We have far more important things to talk about.
Bruno was very rude with you. Is that true?
Quentin, before you left this evening, you made a very serious accusation.
I don't want to talk about that.
Quentin, do you really think that I indulge in witchcraft? Oh, well, do you? Answer me.
Somebody's at the door. Aren't you going to answer it?
Yes?
Good evening. I'm Inspector Hamilton. Is Mr. Quentin Collins at home?
I'm Quentin Collins.
Oh, Mr. Collins.
I'm sorry to inconvenience you, but if you could spare a few moments...
I'm afraid I can't.
In that case, I'm afraid I must insist. You see, I have some very important questions to ask about the death of the first Mrs. Collins. You realize, of course, that if you wish your attorney to be present...
My attorney? Why?
To instruct you as to whether or not you should answer the questions I'm going to ask.
Well, are there going to be charges made?
I'm here mostly for clarification of a few facts that have just come to my attention.
Concerning?
The circumstances surrounding your first wife's death.
Angelique died of a stroke. Dr. Longworth signed the certificate.
Yes, I know. You were a very close friend of Dr. Longworth's, weren't you? I mean, before
Yes.
the recent...
We were good friends. He was my best friend, as a matter of fact. Why do you ask?
Would you say that you could verify a sample of Dr. Longworth's handwriting?
Of course.
Do you recognize this as his?
Yes?
Perhaps you'd care to read it. It's a photostat of a page from his journal.
Thank you.
What is it?
Cyrus says that he falsified the death certificate. Angelique, in fact, was murdered.
Murdered?
Mr. Roger Collins?
Yes. What sort of nonsense is this?
He even gives the method of murder. A hat pin stuck at the base of the skull, causing instant death.
No!
Did he, name who the murderer was?
In a way, yes.
Who?
Well, he admits that it's his own opinion, but he feels that it is, nevertheless, a very good one.
Quentin, who was it?
Me, of course.
That's not possible.
If you'll all excuse me, I'd like to ask a few questions about the seance during which the death took place.
This is absurd. Proceeding on the opinion of a dead man and one who proved to be less than perfect in the end.
All I want is a few more facts. You were at the seance, weren't you, Mr. Collins?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was. Why?
Then perhaps after I've talked to Mrs. Collins' husband, you'll allow me to ask you a few questions as well.
Inspector, please allow me to speak to my husband alone. Please.
Mr. Collins, suppose we step into the foyer for a minute.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Well, what is it?
Quentin, don't you think you should call Chris or one of his partners?
Why?
Well, to advise you before you say anything.
Why should I need advice?
Well, because...
Because you believe that I murdered Angelique.
Oh, Quentin, I didn't say that.
Well, if I'm innocent, why should I need legal advice before answering any questions?
Quentin, I just don't want anything to happen to you.
Are you sure that's the reason? This is not the first time that you've considered it a possibility of my having murdered Angelique.
Quentin, I never thought you did, and I don't now.
Inspector, I shall be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Now, Mr.
We have a visitor.
Oh, Inspector Hamilton, this is Miss Alexis Stokes, Angelique's twin sister.
No need to tell me that. The resemblance is remarkable.
Inspector Hamilton is here to ask some questions concerning Angelique's death.
Oh. Oh, I see.
Of course, you won't be questioned. You weren't here at the time of the seance.
However, there may be a few things I'd like to speak to Miss Stokes about.
She knows nothing about any of this.
That's not quite true, is it, Miss Stokes?
Why, I'm afraid I don't know what you mean.
You recognize this, don't you?
Where did you get that?
Where I got it isn't important. What is important is that you, Miss Stokes, have the original journal from which it was taken. Am I right?
Yes. I have Cyrus's journal.
Why didn't you tell anyone?
Because I know that none of what Cyrus said was true.
Do you consider yourself to be the best judge of that, Miss Stokes?
In this case, yes. Because I am positive that Quentin could never have murdered Angelique.
And on what do you base this assumption?
Why, because Quentin loved her more than anything in the world. And she loved him. There were never two people who loved each other more. Why, tell him, Quentin. Tell him that what I say is true.
I'm more interested at this point in knowing how you got a hold of this journal. Certainly Cyrus didn't give it to you.
I'm not sure that I want to tell you.
I want to know very much where you got it and how.
The photostat of the page was given to me by Mr. Bruno Hess. It was he who called the police.
Bruno. I should have known he would have had a hand in it.
Cyrus left the journal with him. I bought it, hoping to keep it secret.
He's only out to cause trouble. But he won't be causing trouble much longer.
Mr. Collins, I don't think there's that much cause for excitement.
You don't know how much I've had to take from that man. Inspector, I'm sorry, but I won't answer questions of anyone sent to this house by Mr. Hess.
Quentin, please, wouldn't it be better to get this over with now?
No, yes. I'd like to get it over with, all right. With Bruno and with my bare hands.
Oh, it's all my fault. Inspector, would you mind if I spoke to Quentin alone? Quentin, listen, there's no reason to become so angry. Bruno isn't worth it. This can all be over with in just a moment if you will just answer the inspector's questions. Now, you have nothing to fear, I'm sure of that. Bruno only wanted to cause you trouble. I'm sure that he's just sitting at home right now having a good laugh, knowing how angry you must be.
Well, he won't be laughing much longer.
Quentin, no! Don't!
Your husband's a very volatile man, isn't he, Mrs. Collins?
Sometimes.
The subject of Bruno is particularly goading to him, for reasons that I won't go into now.
Quentin, the inspector
Where did they go?
I don't know, unless he's gone up to the bedroom. I'll go see.
Tell him that I'm very anxious to speak to him.
Yes, of course.
You don't think it's possible, Inspector, that Quentin may have headed for Bruno's cottage? I certainly hope not. But since I have a few more things to talk to Mr. Hess about, I think I'd better take another look. I don't think that would be a bad idea. I don't think that would be a bad idea at all.
Now, where did you get a hold of that journal? You stole it, didn't you?
I hardly think that you're in a position to accuse anyone of...
You're not gonna get away with it this time. Now, you're gonna leave this house tonight. You hear that? Tonight, Bruno.
Stop him!
What's the use? You're not worth killing.
Please! I can't breathe!
Very dramatic, Bruno. Now suppose you get up and take a bow. Bruno. Bruno, what's the matter? Bruno! Bruno!
Mr. Collins, I hope for your sake that he isn't dead.